Welcome back, Islam. This evening I will be reading the General Civil Orders of June 10, 2014. This letter was written by the Pope Francis, and it was given to President Barack Obama on that date. Before I begin reading this, I'm going to burn some sage. This document is very, very essential because not only was it given to the corporate fiction President Obama in 2014, this lets you know that everyone still operating on our land illegally as a corporate fiction has already been warned and reminded that they have no authority to do so. So this document is super, super important, and I would encourage you to go on Google, Scribe, and look it up and read it for yourself because it's not hidden and it is on the public record. So, with that being said, let's begin. General Civil Orders, June 10, 2014, issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshals Service, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Armed Services. At the federal level, the American government has always been a separate foreign international maritime jurisdiction operated under contract to provide two services. One, protect the national trust assets, and two, perform governmental services for the several states, which in terms of international law are all recognized sovereign nations. The equity contract, known as the Constitution for the United States of America, makes it clear that the several states contracted to form a single government services agency known as the United States. The contract stipulates the assets to be held in trust by the federal government in the preamble and the Bill of Rights, comprising the trust indentured portion of the contract, and also the stipulates the 19th enumerated services to be performed and exactly what powers the states agreed to delegate to the United States and how they would pay for these services. What isn't so widely known or appreciated is that the government services company known as the United States was a privately owned and operated commercial company set up by Benjamin Franklin in 1754. George Washington was actually the 11th president of the company and the only first president to take office after the receipt of the Constitution contract. According to 1824 Webster's Dictionary, the word federal was a synonym for contract at the time. The original Constitution was written. All constitutions are affirmations of debt. In this case, the debt the states assumed when they created the federal government and jointly agreed to pay for the services that would be provided. The office of president is and always has been a uniquely commercial office, not a head of state. Because the federal government services company is privately owned and operated, only shareholders, known as electors, have a real say in its elections and administrations. Only trustees, known as members of Congress, have the right to determine how the national trust assets are protected, though they are obligated as trustees to do a reasonable job of it. And only the states have the right to complain if the stipulated services aren't up to par. The American people at large, known simply as inhabitants of the domestic states or state citizens, have always been a separate and distinct population apart from the U.S. citizens or federal citizens. And to these two groups of a third kind of citizen was added in 1871, that of the U.S. citizen. Following the Civil War, the government services company providing the services agreed to by the states reorganized as a corporation doing business as the United States of America Incorporated, and published its articles as the Constitution of the United States of America. Unlike the Constitution for the United States of America, the Constitution of the United States of America is a document peculiar to the new municipal, that is, city and state, government formed to administer the affairs of the District of Columbia and federal territories and possessions. This corporate constitution provided for the creation of a new kind of federal citizen, a U.S. citizen, and from that point onward, from the perspective of the new federal municipal government formed by the Act of 1871, American state citizens, the inhabitants of the domestic 50 states, were regarded as non-essential aliens. This same corporation doing business as the United States of America Incorporated, chartered in Delaware, began operating two separate governments at once: the municipal government of the District of Columbia and the federal government, owned to the states of the Union, both under the auspices of the United States Congress. These semantic deceits have given rise to endless confusions, usurpations, and criminality. These general civil orders address some of those issues which are most important at this time. The Congress ceased operating as it was required by contract to operate in 1860. After December of 1865, it never again operated as an unincorporated body politic representing the states of the Union. The federal government has functioned exclusively as an incorporated commercial entity with an elected board of directors, merely calling itself the U.S. Congress ever since. As such, the federal government is a commercial corporation like any other commercial corporation. It has no special status, no immunity from prosecution, and hasn't functioned as a governing body of sovereign nation for 150 years. To overcome this obvious difficulty, the U.S. Congress formed another Union of America states from the federal territories and possessions. The 7 insular states, including the state of New Columbia, District Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Italia, and formed a new nation simply called themselves the United States of America and claimed separate national sovereignty. Thus, we have the United States of America, major, comprised of the now 50 organic states created by statehood compacts, and the United States of America, minor, representing the 7 insular states, both being administered under the direction of the corporate board of directors known as the U.S. Congress, which has continued to act solely as the sovereign government of the United States of America, minor. This blatant semantic deceits by officers of the federal corporation and officials of the United States of America, minor, amount to purposeful constructive fraud against their employers, the American organic states. To try to overcome these obstacles, members of the U.S. Congress contrived a complex regulatory scheme by which they established their own states, governments, and have tried to claim that they have been at war with the American people while relying upon the organic states for their own sustenance, and have falsely claimed that they established exclusive legislative jurisdiction over the original states of the Union by these acts of self-interest and fraud carried out against their employers and benefactors. Fraud has no statutes of limitation. The government of services corporations have always been under commercial contract to provide services to the American people and have acted against their employers as employees. It is essential that members of the Bar Association, members of the state government, which have been surreptitiously redefined to their detriment, members of the domestic police forces, and members of the various armed forces gain a clear understanding of the fact that for purposes of administration of government services on American state soil, the federal government is a corporation with no more civil authority on the land than J.C. Penney or Harley Davidson. The federal government is under contract to the organic states, and as our forefathers vested the entire civil government on the land in the people inhabiting the land, each American is a sovereign organic state of the Union. Each one of us has more civil power and authority on the land than the entire federal government has ever had or ever can have. For this reason, and as a result of the deliberations which have already taken place among the other nations of the world, the federal government doing business as the United States Incorporated, all capital letters, a French commercial corporation, is hereby called to task for non-performance on its contractual obligations. The semantic deceits involved in claiming that America's state citizens are the U.S. citizens and all the other fraudulent claims advanced against the American states and people are to be fully recognized for what they are. Fraudulent claims have no merit and owe no enforcement. Other corporate entities notable: the Federal Reserves, all capital letters, and International Monetary Fund, all capital letters, which are responsible for creating and promoting this fraud, are to be recognized and dealt with appropriately as international dealers in fraud and usury. American Negroes have in the past been considered U.S. citizens because that is the only citizenship they were ever granted after the Civil War, a grave error of justice that resulted in them only having civil rights, which are privileges granted by the U.S. Congress instead of the natural and unalienable rights. They are naturally heirs too. They were also claimed as chattel backing the debts of the United States of America, incorporated despite both national and international prohibitions abolishing slavery and pingeony. A prompt correction is available from the organic states, and by proclamation of these organic states, they are granted full and immediate recognizable status as American nationals. I'm an American national. Owned all the natural and unalienable rights of any organic state citizen, no matter what geographical defined state they may inhabit on the land. The only exceptions are those unfortunates born within the borders of the insular states, District of Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, etc., who must self-declare under Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It has been the policy of the United States of America Minor to consider all federal employees and members of the active duty military who are birthright inhabitants of the United States of America Major temporary dual citizens, subject to United States of America Minor. However, the United States of America Major recognizes no dual citizenship whatsoever, and the process required for any birthright inhabitant of the land to adopt the U.S. citizenship in both the lengthy and purposeful as stated in U.S. Statute at Large 2, Revised Statute 2561. As the employers of the United States of America Minor, we exercise our propriety interests and direct all American state citizens to defend the interest and integrity of the American organic states, regardless of any contrary orders issued by any corporate officer of the United States, all capital letters, or foreign officials acting under the auspices of the United States of America Minor. All birthright state citizens of the United States of America Major are specifically enjoined from engaging in any activity contrary to the health, welfare, safety, and benefit of their fellow state citizens, and will otherwise be recognized as criminals regardless of what uniforms they wear and what authorities they pretend to have. If corporate President Obama should order any member of the U.S. military or any armed agency personnel, BATF, IRS, NSA, FEMA, etc., to open fire upon American state citizens, it will be a war crime against non-combatant civilians, and it will be immediately recognized as such throughout the world. For all military and civilian-based defense and law enforcement agencies, the rule to be observed is, if you can't do it as a private individual, you can't do it as a public officer. Any state citizen who is forced to open fire on federal, state, or capital state funded personnel in defense of life or property will be recognized as a combatant civilian without exception, held harmless and supported by all members of the American Armed Forces of the United States of America Major and all American state militias. Any state citizen so imposed upon by those in his or her employment or hired by those in his or her employment in any capacity whatsoever, including the elected officials, will be entitled to full reparations in the amount of $5 million USD, or the equivalent to the time of damage incurred for every death, $2,500,000 USD, or the equivalent at the time of the damage for every permanent disability. They shall also be owed full reparations for all property damage incurred and up to 80 times compensatory damages at the discretion of a jury of their peers. The individual states of the Union formed by Statehood Compact retain the full and unencumbered claim upon their birth inhabitants. These states are defined geographically. They are not incorporated entities, and they are not represented by any incorporated state of organization at this time. They are presented solely by the unincorporated body politic and their individual inhabitants who retain all organic and civil prerogatives on the land. Those organizations currently calling themselves as the State of Alaska, or capital letters, the State of Alaska, etc., are representatives of two different governmental services on corporations operated by the Federal Reserve, all capital letters, State of Alaska, and the International Monetary Fund, capital letters, State of Alaska, doing business as franchise of the United States of America Incorporated, and in capital letters, United States Incorporated, respectively. They have no representational capacity whatsoever and are operating under commercial contract only. Because these states and federal entities have all functioned under conditions of non-disclosure and semantic deceit, serving to promulgate fraud upon the organic states and the American people, they are all to be considered criminal syndicates to the extent that they have been aware of their status and have failed to correct their operations and representations. All contracts held by these organizations are assumed to be held by these organizations as null and void for fraud. These contracts include, but are not limited to, contracts for sale, for labor, for trade, citizenship contracts, power of attorney, licenses, mortgages, registrations, and application agreements of any kind, any and all kinds. All signatures of American state citizens acting under the influence of semantic deceit and non-disclosures are rescinded. All those individuals engaged in employment as federal and state and municipal employees and elected officials are hereby given notice that they are employees of private for-profit corporations that are merely under contract to provide stipulated public services, having no special status, having no immunity, and having no authority as sovereign nations or states. Any actions that they take infringing on the rights and prerogatives of American state citizens are criminal acts without exception and are to be treated as criminal acts. These individuals have exactly the same standing as employees of any other commercial company, and the rules, regulations, codes, and other statutes they enforce are obligations unique to those organizations only. Posse comitatus is to be observed and enforced on the land of the domestic organic states, regardless of any executive order issued by Barack H. Obama acting as President of the United States of America minor, or as the President of any incorporated entity whatsoever. Any such imposition or martial law by Mr. Obama has exactly the same legal standing as martial law imposed by the president of Burger King International, all capital letters, or the king of Sweden on the land of the organic states. He can order his paid employees to commit harikari if he wishes to do so, and they may follow his instructions if they care to, but they may not under any circumstance murder anyone, assault anyone, seize any private property, or cause any trouble for American state citizens, or they shall be immediately recognized as criminals and treated as such. Likewise, the government of the United States of America minor may do its wills with those who are legitimately born under its hegemony. But it cannot say one word claiming authority over any birthright state citizen of the United States of America major. Please note that Barack H. Obama is Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, which legitimately includes the Puerto Rican Navy and whatever security forces are endemic to Guam, American Samoa, and the other insular states. The Grand Army of the Republic and its successors are obligated to perform under General Order 100. The American Armed Forces are also known as the Armed Forces of the United States of America Major, are paid for and obligated to serve the organic states which we present and for which we require your service. In the absence of a properly formed and operational government of the Republic, all rights revert to the organic states, including the civil authority to issue these general orders. President Barack Obama is operating as an official of the United States of America minor and as a corporate officer in the employ of the capital letters United States, a French commercial corporation chartered by the International Monetary Fund, an agency of the United Nations, all capital letters. He is not now, nor has he ever been elected to any public office of the United States of America major. Likewise, the members of the U.S. Congress have never taken the oath of any public officer of the United States of America major and are merely operating as private corporate officers of the same commercial corporation doing business as capital letters the United States. All officers deriving and paid and or receiving credit entirely or in part as a result of the original equity contract known as the Constitution for the United States of America are officers of the Armed Forces of the United States of America minor by definition, and those who serve in these offices are employees of the inhabitants of the domestic, now 50 states defined by statehood compacts. As such, you are now receiving direct orders under the civil authority of these organic states. All the foregoing circumstances is indeed the mischief predicted by Chief Justice Harlan in his dissenting opinion given in Downs versus Bedwell. Mischief resulting from allowing Congress to operate two governments at once, one as a constitutional republic and the other as autocracy under the plenary control of Congress. The members of the U.S. Congress have been corrupted by the power, lust, or through ignorance, subverted, and used to serve the aims of criminals. That does not give anyone license to sin. It merely requires the recognition of the sins of the members of Congress and appropriate enlightened action depriving them of any power or excuse to continue these deceits and absurdities. These are 515 people responsible. There are 515 people responsible. It is incumbent upon them to straighten it out and for the rest of us to insist that they do so. It is also responsible for all members of the domestic police forces and all members of the American military to preserve the peace and tranquility and prosperity owed to the American people. By order issued by Pope Francis doing business as Francis on July 11, 2013, all members of the American Bar Association are similarly similarly required to serve the cause of peace and will be held individually responsible for any action seeking to undermine the government of the organic states of the Union or defraud the people inhabiting the organic states. We affirm under penalty and perjury that we are natural living birthright inhabitants of the Wisconsin state and Washington state, respectively, full of age, permanently domiciled in the jurisdiction of the air, holding unimpeded material interest upon the land jurisdiction of the United States of America, Major. These general civil orders are issued upon our civil, commercial, and canon authority by our living hands and our testaments jointly sworn and witnessed by our seals and autographs before Pope Francis and all nations, declaring that the truth of these matters has been established beyond reasonable doubt upon the public record, and we hereby autograph, seal, and issue these general civic orders to all officers, commissioned and non-commissioned, active duty and reserve, without the United States of America minor, without the United Nations, without the city-state of Westminster, and without representation. Judge Anna Marie Wilhelmina Hanna Sophia Reisinger von Redsenstein von Latant Vorbeck, non-negotiable autograph under seal and in service, all rights reserved. And Judge James Clintwood Belcher, non-negotiable autograph under seal and in service, all rights reserved. The copies were sent to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Major General David E. Quantuck, State of Alaska Governor Sean Parnell, State of Alaska Lieutenant Governor Ned Treadwell, Chief Justice Dana Fabe, Colonial Jim Crockerell, Alaska State Troopers, Robert Hewen, U.S. Marshal, Kevin Donovan, FBI, and other interested parties. And here, they have clearly autographed and sealed this document, which is on the public record. So, with this being said, anyone that is thinking and their brains are on, you know that for us to be under occupation still by corporate fictions such as Donald Trump and anyone else pretending to have authority on our land who is not natural to it, they are in supreme violation of the law. So, everyone who can get into your proper person, if you would like to be in subject status and you still can do so, I would suggest that you do so, because the time is near, because time is running out. It does not truly exist, but for certain individuals, it truly does. And we, the Moors, have found out who we are, the ones who do know who they are, standing on their square, and we're going to make sure that we enforce our Constitution and we bring peace, love, justice, freedom, and respect on our land. And from now on, we're going into the Aquarian age, and it's all about moving forward. Enough of this nonsense. We'd like to move on with our lives, and we like to govern ourselves because we're fully capable and responsible. So we suggest that you follow suit and you do as we ask you to do, and you follow the Constitution from now on. Thank you so much. Have a grand evening, and I'll be back with you with more content in the future. Bye.